Everybody good? This is Ben Dzurik of Dzurik Property Twins, and we asked him to be your guide through the buyer consult because Ben and his brother are very successful with their peers, which a lot of whom are first-time home buyers, and they are very successful in the luxury market. Really different styles of buyer presentations, but a lot of the same content. And so Ben is going to be able to walk you through what that process looks like, what their listing presentation looks like. Feel free to ask him any questions. Have a wonderful morning.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy. Good morning, everyone. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good. How are you?
Good. Awesome. So we're going to talk through buyer consults today. If we don't mind, can everyone kind of go around and just share a quick little bit about you and how long you've been in the business, or if you've done any transactions or things like that?
Okay. Should I start?
Yes, that would be awesome.
Okay. I'm Maureen Trost. I started in the beginning of the summer. And I got my first listing September 12th.
Okay.
That sold, well, I should say it sold. It was under contract in under 24 hours. And we also set up, they bought new construction. So we have that. But right now I don't have anything else in the pipeline yet.
Problem. Congrats on getting those sold and under contract. That's awesome.
Thanks.
I can go next. My name's Danielle. I work with Ryan Cole. We are currently working on a few different things. I have about 2 clients right now on the buyer side, just waiting for one to get pre-approved, and then we're going to write an offer. So that's pretty exciting. And
Awesome.
I have been in the business for about a month and a half now.
Woohoo! Sweet. Glad you guys are here. Bruce, how about you?
Hey, good morning. Bruce Schreiber. I've been licensed for about 3 months here, I guess. Held a couple open houses for other agents and just really trying to get the business moving here. I have remodeled many homes over the years. My twin brother and he's working to get his license right now. My background is in technology and IT. My degree's in computer programming, actually. But I also had my license when I was 20 years old and was handed a phone book. And that didn't last very long.
Sure.
So I'm kind of retread, if you will. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
Fantastic. Well, no, I'm glad you guys are all here. I want this to be very conversational in terms of if you have questions or you want to talk through something more, please don't hesitate. I want to make sure that we're giving as much value as quickly as possible and giving you the information that you're looking for. So today's main conversation is going to be around the buyer consult and finding buyers and converting them to actual closings. So starting off, let's just talk about finding buyers, where to actually find them so that we can then have the conversation of converting them and turning them into closings. Have you guys found anything? Have you been doing anything that you enjoy in terms of finding clients? Or are you looking for more opportunities to be able to find clients?
One thing that I've actually surprisingly have found that has worked for me is on Facebook, just like the different groups that I'm a part of, just like straight up asking if anyone like has any homes that they maybe have been interested in selling, or like they've thought about it, or if they know of any homes in a certain area. And then when I post that, then I get people like that are not only interested in maybe listing, but buyers as well.
Right.
So just straight up asking on Facebook and not being like scared to do that.
Totally. No, that's huge. And it ultimately comes down to actions get results is the big thing that we've essentially learned, is that if you don't ask for it, you don't get it, right? So just doing the actions, hoping that it comes to you. It won't always come, but sometimes it does, right? So just to share some of the things that we've done, I do want it to be very conversational, not so much me doing this and that, but I want to make sure that I'm also able to provide value here. So let's see, regarding some of the things that we do, we, especially when we were starting our business, we were doing a lot of open houses, and we were helping people that we didn't already know. And so when people come to the open houses, there's kind of 3 areas of questions that we want to be able to get as much information as we can from them right away. So the 3 questions that we ask is, one is, how did you find out about the open house? Was it online? Was it from the signs outside, or did your realtor tell you to come and check it out? So asking them that. We ask them, hey, are you from the area? A lot of times you can find out if they're just a nosy neighbor, or if they're actually a serious buyer. And then let's see, and then we ask them, of course, eventually, once we've figured out a little bit of their story, if they're working with a realtor, to be able to find out, to make sure that we're not stepping on anyone's toes there. We also use a sign-in sheet. With COVID, the technique that we've been using lately that has been working great, I'll be interested to see how it works through the winter months, is that we put a sign on the outside of the front door that says, before entering, please text me your full name with your email address, so that we're avoiding the idea of them having to share a pen or paper with anyone else. So we've been having great success with people completing that. With it being colder outside, I don't know if we're going to have to revisit how we do that, but it also helps limit the number of people inside. We've had times where we're backed up outside the door, but that still helps us get all of their info, actually even easier than kind of before. That being said, there are some people who they don't have their phones or other reasons, so we still have a sign-in sheet inside, where we ask them for their name, their phone number, their email, and their address, to be able to get as much information as we can. And then that same day when the open house is over, we end up reaching out to each one by phone call, to be able to find out if they have any further interest in the property, or if there's anything else that we can help them with. And that's how we've had a lot of success. For example, my twin brother Alex, his very first open house that he ever hosted, that's essentially, he did his follow-up, as we're all told to do our follow-up. I know it's tough and not always the most fun, but doing it the same day ended up selling that listing from his very first open house, because he was doing the actions to be able to make that happen. So it is very doable. It doesn't need to be your own listing. Definitely ask around. The very first open houses that we were hosting were not our listings, but we were still able to help them and sell them and get clients from them. Any questions around open houses or anything of the sort?
One thing that I did for open houses, it's funny that you said that, because we were kind of talking about that like another day on Ignite.
Yeah.
I do the sign-in sheets. I didn't do the texting, but I require that they have to sign in with their name and number, and hopefully their email, just because with COVID, you're having to do that everywhere else, at restaurants and whatnot. So it's just an easy way to slide that in there. Yes, I'm sure that they know that we're doing it for probably not COVID purposes, but that's just, I like that you're doing that as well. I like the texting thing too. I haven't ever thought of that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And another question that we put on there, and so it's, I can share the open house sheet too with you guys. But the other column that we have is, are you working with a realtor? So they can write either yes or no. And if they write yes, we don't follow up with them, right? Unless they're a fake yes and they've told us in person that they actually aren't working with a realtor, or that they haven't signed the buyer consult there. So let's see. No, that's awesome. The other thing is, yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
I've got a little bit of feedback. What I've been doing at the opens, I've been bringing new boxes of pens and just saying to them, and leaving them sticking out of the box a little bit, and they're brand new pens, cheap, thick pens, whatever, in a box, and just saying, please sign in and please feel free to keep the pen when you're done. They're brand new pens, and I'm working to get some pens printed up with my information on them, and then go that route. So
super. No, that's smart, getting your name on it, especially if they're taking it home with them. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I do that too with the pens. You can order hundreds of them on Amazon for super cheap. So yeah, I've been doing that too, Bruce, and I've been thinking about getting my name printed on them as well, but that gets a little bit more costly for like COVID purposes of letting them all take them home.
Right. And
Sure.
what I've also done in the past is I've had a clean container of pens and then a dirty container of pens with just tape on them that says, you know, used, so that they can put them right in there afterwards, and then you can sanitize them afterwards. So just another option. Let's see, any other questions or thoughts around open houses before we kind of move on to other techniques?
I just ordered some open house signs that actually have my logo and my picture and stuff like that on it, so that at least I'm doing a little bit more advertising instead of just getting the office open house directional signs and having to go all the way to the office and get those. And, you know, then that can be added work. So to me, it made sense to go ahead and order those as well.
Totally. Yep. Exactly. No, it's great to have your name all over, because when people are sitting at those stoplights and stop signs, they are reading your sign. So that's awesome. Let's see. Okay. So another technique that we've had great success with, especially at the beginning of our business, just meeting new clients. Well, actually, let's take a step back. So when we were getting into the business, we kind of had this idea, oh my gosh, our family and friends, they're going to want to work with us, right? And so we found out that was not necessarily the case. So the expectation being that we thought that they would, and they really weren't. It probably took 2 to 3 years at least before even some of our close family and friends were willing to say, hey, Ben and Alex, I want you to help me buy or sell. So that led us to finding these different avenues to be able to find a way to find clients that were most likely people that we didn't know, who also didn't know that we were brand new to the business, right? So, you know, our very first clients, they don't know that they were our very first clients. And so I think that is helpful in terms of getting started there. And so another technique that we used was door knocking. And so depending on where we are, well, of course it's COVID now, so we don't do a ton of door knocking, but hopefully that can come back, or that it can be practiced in a safe way. And so what we did is, depending on the neighborhood, we'd either drive our car into every single driveway, or we'd go around and walk. Kind of the value part of it is that we found the most success in doing it on rainy days and snowy days. Pretty much every rainy and snowy day, we'd get let into a good number of homes. You know, there'd be people that'll shoo you away and they'll slam your door, but it comes down to a numbers game. It's just like being on the phone and being hung up on, right? But on rainy and snowy days, we found the most success where people want to let you inside. They want to build relationships. Ultimately, is business is building relationships, right? Like that's ultimately kind of the foundation of it, is building relationships. People have to like you and trust you in order to want to work with you. So the goal being, get in the door and then building that relationship. So snowy and rainy days are always successful. Of course, they aren't always the most fun days to be outside, but hey, a little water on you kind of helps them want to let you inside. So have any of you done door knocking at this point?
Ryan and I did it last week, and it's funny because one guy came to the door, like stood back, and he's like, he looked awful. He's like, I have COVID. I can't come any closer. And Ryan and I looked at each other like, oh my God. But yes, we did do it. But it was a beautiful, sunny fall day.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I'm glad that you all hopefully didn't get COVID. So
yeah, we had masks on. We're okay.
I just put door knockers on well, I shouldn't say I did it by myself. I sent my kids out and I bought them ice cream afterwards and hit the neighborhoods all over where I live and put door knockers out, just because I felt like I shouldn't be door knocking during COVID.
Sure.
But also I think what's tough is when you're not on a team or you don't have a business partner and you're a female and you're by yourself. Both open houses and door knocking come with a certain amount of safety concerns. So that
Yeah,
I have that. So
I mean, I would highly suggest, you know, just to help you, if you want to do those, you know, open houses and door knocking and things like that, is that ask someone to come along with you, whether they're a realtor or not. You know, they don't need to be a realtor, but of course, feel free to ask someone in the office and figure out a way to be able to help, you know, co-help those people if you end up helping them. But no, we definitely want to make sure that you're safe and comfortable is number one there. So feel free to ask around, make a post, and people are probably also in the same shoes where they want to go out, but they don't feel comfortable either. So.
Okay.
Awesome. Let's see. And then, of course, there's calling around. Whether it's calling your sphere or cold calling. There's a few different programs out there, like Mojo and things like that, that are dialers, MOJO. We did use that when we got into the business. You're able to call one person at a time, or a 3-line dialer, where they're essentially calling people for you. And the first one to pick up, you get the information online. So you're in a program. Of course, it's a paid program monthly, but we did have good success with that. Whether we were circle dialing around a neighborhood that we have a listing that's preparing for market, or maybe an open house coming up, calling around and telling everyone about it. Then, of course, asking them if they are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate as well. So there are some good programs out there for calling if you want to hunker down and do that. We found that the best times for that were typically in the evenings, evenings or first thing in the morning. Afternoons, a lot of people, that's when they get a little busier or frustrated with whatever's going on in the day. But if you catch them in the morning before anything has happened, it seems to be a little bit more successful on that front. Has anyone done any cold calling of any sort, or warm calling or anything of that?
I have not.
Oh, good deal. And so that is something that I'd say people are doing less. The big thing, and so Alex and I, we don't do a ton of it these days, just because we have different techniques that we prefer, and ultimately we always, we want everyone just doing things that they enjoy, right? And so versus things that, of course, it's okay to be uncomfortable, and it's good to be uncomfortable and grow in that front. But cold calling is not necessarily our favorite thing to do. And so our main focus is our sphere. And so we are calling our sphere, we are texting our sphere, we're Facebook messaging our sphere. But our main things is actually hosting events. And so we do 2 big events every single year, one in the summer and one in the winter. And that's our main way to be able to make sure that we're touching people in person at least twice a year. But we're also big into, doing, whether it's a dinner or a happy hour or a coffee, we're doing about 5 of those a week in terms of with different smaller groups. And so that's really our main focus of lead generation and meeting people and building relationships, is really the face-to-face, just events and hosting or meeting people at places. I know it gets trickier with COVID, but that's definitely our favorite thing and our most successful way to be able to generate business.
Can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah, of course.
Actually, I have like 2 questions. So one being, like you said that you primarily work with your sphere, and that's kind of something that I'm trying to focus on too. I'm originally not from here, from Wisconsin, so I don't have like family here, but I do have like all my friends from college from here. And eventually, I know a lot of them will be in the place to buy a house. But one thing, and I've asked this before, is I feel like I don't want to say uncomfortable just like reaching out to people that like maybe I don't like associate myself with on a daily basis, or just like we know of each other. I just
Right.
want to come off like, oh, like she's just messaging me now because she's in real estate. Like, how do you go about that? Or like has that come across your mind ever?
Yeah, and so in those situations, the main thing that we're reaching out for is to build that relationship, right? Is to learn more about them and maybe what they're doing in business, especially if they maybe own a small company or are part of something that you might be excited about or able to help support in whatever way. So really, finding out a way that you can help them or be interested in what they're doing or something, whether that's if they're involved in, like we had someone that was, I knew that they were in underwater hockey, that was something that I hadn't really heard of or known was a thing. So I ended up reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'd love to learn more about, I saw that you're doing underwater hockey, can I learn some more about that, and ended up going to a practice there and, meeting all of them and things like that. So I'd say if you can find something that you can relate to them, that they like or do or enjoy, it's a great way to, because people always love talking about themselves, right? Asking them questions about what they enjoy or what they do. And a lot of times people can talk for hours about that, right? So I'd say just finding some type of common ground or something that you can learn about them, and turn that into a reason to be able to get together and hang out or grab a coffee. I'd love to, I see you like this. Let's talk about this or something. I know I understand that it can be difficult, but once you do a few of them, and they can be a little bit uncomfortable, but eventually you kind of learn the flow and find things to be able to talk about with them, and build that relationship from things that you maybe don't know much about, but can learn something from. So is that helpful at all?
It is helpful. I guess I just I need to get over the fact that maybe is just a thought in the back of my head that they're just gonna be like, oh, you want to get together and learn about me, but then I'm sure you're gonna sneak real estate in there somehow.
Sure. Yeah. And
So maybe I just, like you said, need to try it a few times. And
yeah, oh, totally. And the thing is so many people are interested in real estate that they will typically bring that up before you even bring it up. If you focus on asking them questions and learning about them, they will eventually turn it around and start asking you questions. And most people, if you're in real estate, most people on the other side, that's something that they remember. So they will know before you're even getting together probably that you're in real estate, and they will ask you, so how's the market? And that leads you into talking about the market, and then you can easily and fluidly be able to ask, hey, so are you renting now, or what's your story? And is your family growing? Are you looking, things like that. So it's focusing as much as you can on them, and then they will naturally ask about real estate in the market. So don't even necessarily let it feel, I know that it's tough and kind of a perception and mind thing. Don't feel like you're doing a sales thing as much as you are wanting to build that relationship. And of course, being genuine about it is important. But they will ask about it, and you will make it to that point where you can do a little bit of, this is what I'm doing, and I'm excited and passionate about it, and how you can help. So.
Would you suggest when you make the first
I also
phone
like
call,
to think about, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you make the first phone call to someone, it's the first time you've ever called that person, I wouldn't even say anything real estate related. Is that right? Like, you're just calling to see how they're doing. Yeah, right. Right. And they might be like, oh, and Danielle, I understand what you're saying, because I'm sure most people in the back of their mind are going, she's never called me before. Right. I know this is probably real estate related, right? They're going to have that radar maybe up. But then if you go through the entire conversation and you don't bring up anything real estate related, then they kind of let that go. And then the next time you call them, it's easier to bring that up. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep, exactly. It's just asking them how they're doing, how their job is, how their family is, just asking them all those good questions. And people, they'll love to tell you all about all of those things. Yes, that first time they might be a little bit like, hey, what's up with this? Why is she calling? But hey, just be genuine. Have that great conversation, and then you can hang up. And that second time you call back, it'll be so much easier for everyone. They'll want to talk. You'll have more to be able to relay. Take some notes from that first call so that you can bring up their puppy that they had just got and see how they're doing with training and everything. And that will mean a lot to them, that you're remembering all of that, whether you had it in notes or not. They won't know that, but that will mean a lot to them. And they will ask about real estate. They will, and very well, potentially on the very first call, just because that is something that so many people love to talk about. So, hey, Bruce, what were you going to say?
I wanted to add that, keep in mind that you're offering a value, a service to value. And that, I don't know, me personally, when my friends are in some sort of business or acquaintances or family members or whatever, I love to support them any way I can. And so we're not selling Amway soap door to door or anything. Eventually, people are going to need to buy or sell, and so I think it's important that you're not high pressure selling anyone something they don't need, right? It's not like we're selling pizzas door to door for the Boy Scout fundraiser or whatever. And so me personally, and I don't know how the rest of you are, but I love to support people that I know, and so I don't think of it as that big of a deal to tell them, hey, I've changed careers, I'm in real estate now. I'd love to help you out. A family member, a friend of yours, anyone that you know, I'd be happy to work with them.
Exactly. Yep. You're helping them reach their goals. You are helping them. You completely have a value. That's awesome. Thanks, Bruce.
Alex, I've heard a lot of agents say that they time block, like from for instance, 9 to 11 every morning to
Right.
do those calls. Do you do that consistently?
So we do, I'd say we do it a little differently where we don't necessarily do that, but each day we probably spend, 1 to 2 hours a day doing that lead gen of connecting with our sphere mainly. And so yes, every day it is a little different. We aren't as rigid as some of the other teams in terms of when they do that and how they do that. But it is something that we are doing every day. It's turned into, like, yes, at the very beginning, we used to be very specific as to when that time was and doing it, because you're right, creating those habits, are the habits that create success, right? And so by what we're doing now is mainly we've made it a little bit more fluid just because we've been able to and can, and that's what we enjoy a little bit more. But at the very beginning, when we were starting our business, our calendar was our boss. It still is our boss, but it's a little bit more, if you remove it, you replace it somewhere else. And so yes, making your calendar your boss is so important in terms of blocking that time out. And even if it's only starting with, hey, I'm going to make 1 call per day for this week, let's do that, or maybe I'm going to spend 15 minutes this day calling, my sphere, calling the people with the last name A or the first letter in their name is A, and just doing small amounts. It doesn't need to be, I need to start off with 3 hours. Start off with, I'm going to make 1 call today, and then the next day, maybe I'm going to make 2 calls today. And the thing is, once you get past that first or second call, they all get a little easier. And they start to be they can be very similar, and you get in the hang of it. And then all of a sudden you're doing a bunch, and you can crank out an hour of them. And it doesn't feel like anything, or it doesn't feel as painful as it might the very first call. So just know, with anything, the more practice you have, the easier it gets. And then you can be a little bit more fluid. But yes, I'd say a lot of the very successful teams, they are very rigid about it. We aren't as rigid, but we do still make our contacts. So. Sorry, that was probably a long-winded answer for that. So let's see. Any other things that we want to touch on before diving into a buyer consult and kind of what that looks like? Or questions that you may have top of mind?
Could I ask a little bit more about your events? Are you holding any right now?
So we aren't right now. So our summer and winter events that we generally have. So our summer one is we end up renting out the biggest boat on Minnetonka called the Bella Vista. And so it fits up to 150 people. We love that. That's our big summer event, right? Of course, we couldn't do that this year. They said that we could, but we chose not to. So we've got that scheduled for next year. And then our winter event is we host a dinner party at our house. That one typically ends up being about 100 to 130 people. We've been doing it for 6 years now again. And so that's like a themed party. Every year is a different theme. People, both of those events, you want to create something that brings value to them and excitement and something that they want to come to. And so this would have been our 6th or 7th year. And we have food catered in, and, we've had each year, is kind of a different theme. One was a pajama-rama, where people are in pajamas. And then one was winter is a beach. I know that's probably a little iffy, but it was, people come in beach theme and hula theme. I'm trying to think. We've done a speakeasy one where they're coming in the back door with a red light, things like that. So just different themes that kind of make it exciting for everyone. And then we provide dinner, of course. And so those are things that people like to talk about. They like to say, hey, can I bring my friend Susie and Joe? And we always say yes, and people like to bring their friends. They know it's going to be a fun time. And so that's how we meet more people as well. It's just a good thing. And then, of course, we have a photo booth and things like that. So there are, the photos go online. They've got our name at the bottom of it. It's not our business at the bottom of it, but it does have our names on it to some degree, like the Grinch one from last year. So it's just different ways of being able to build more relationships is ultimately the goal, is having fun, enjoying it, building relationships. so that we're in front of these people. And so when they come, we do ask everyone to make sure that we have everyone's name beforehand so that we can have head counts and things like that. So we really end up getting everyone's contact info as well. But building it in an environment that is, it's not a business environment, but so it's easy for everyone to talk and connect with and have fun. So, which we found is a great way to be able to build those relationships at those events or at a happy hour or lunch or breakfast or things like that. So we like to get together in small groups of, 6 to 8, I guess now, but and just get a group of friends that they might be friends together, and just invite them all together and hang out. Awesome.
Did you feel like you could do that like right away?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it wasn't, originally doing it, yes, it was a little bit for business, but a lot of it was mainly for fun. Just inviting as, our whole sphere together.
I meant like, are you able to do, like, when you just started off in real estate though, like, obviously you hadn't really sold any homes yet, and that does cost probably quite a lot of money. So did you do that when you first started off, or like did that take a while to start to be able to do?
Right. So like our very first one was we made all the food, our very first one. We hosted it in our little house. We put a scrap of carpet in the garage so that we could have more seating, and we had tables and chairs all over the house. We probably, at the very first one, we probably had 75 or 80 people there. And every room had tables and chairs, and then we carpeted the 2-car garage, small 2-car, had tables and chairs in there. And then we pulled all those tables and chairs up after dinner. Santa came and brought a gift for everyone. So everyone's hanging out in the garage at this point. And so there are very cost-effective ways to be able to, that one, I'd say the first 2 or 3 maybe were very cost-effective, where we made the food ourselves, which, and did pretty much everything ourselves, where nothing was hired out. So yes, I think you can do it cost effective if you want to. So.
Could I ask a little bit about, obviously each event's different, but what about your return on investment on those, your ROI? I assume that it doesn't happen immediately, but do you have any success stories from some of your early events that you were able to turn around some business out of them fairly quickly?
Right, most definitely. It's I'd say that, each party, from that specific party, we get at least one piece of business that probably turns around that closes within 30 to 60 days, at least one piece of business. And that more than pays for the party, right?
Yeah, a great investment then. Yeah, right.
And I would say, I would say that we probably get more than one per event. Of course, it's hard to say, does it come directly from that event, or is it from building that relationship from, they've been coming 2 years, and that might be the only time that I see those people is at this event, just because that's the bigger group. And so, it might take 2 times of them coming before they're in a place that they can buy, but we're the ones that's top of mind, that's, we've had a good time with, and they like and they trust us. So.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Awesome. Diving in, I guess before we talk about the buyer consult, one last thing to talk about is just the different types of buyers out there. First-time home buyers versus luxury buyers. I know in our minds we've got this perception that they're very different people. And at the end of the day, they actually are not. They are the same as you and I, whether they're first-time or luxury. They are all humans. They all have similar feelings and similar wants and needs as a first-time home buyer, a second-time home buyer, a luxury buyer. They're all the same. So if anything, they are actually easier to work with to some degree. An extra $100 here or there, or something wrong with the house over there, isn't as impactful to their lifestyle, their bank account, and things like that, where generally they are actually easier to be able to work with. And so when you are prospecting and looking to, whether it's to set up to hang out with a group of friends, or a neighborhood to call or a neighborhood to door knock. You have control as to which people you're doing. And so what we focused on from the very beginning is the luxury side of things, because they're the same thing. You get to pick what door you knock on a more expensive one. Naturally, how our structure is set up is we get paid more when we sell a more expensive house, right? So if what you focus on expands. So if you focus on luxury, you will do luxury. You'll be able to continue to do more luxury. And they're all the same. They are, and sometimes they're actually home more if you're doing door knocking and things like that. And so same for a buyer consult. Some would say that you do them differently. I would say you do not. They are the same. They have the same wants and needs. It just might be at a larger scale. And so diving in, once you've, if you're at an open house, if you're on the phone with them, you are able to say, and so for all of our buyer consults, we meet in the office. At the very beginning of our business, we were meeting at coffee shops or at their house. And what we found is that there's more distractions. There's less confidentiality. For example, if it's at the coffee shop and one of their friends shows up that they didn't want to know they were talking about selling, you don't want that to spill the beans, right? Or buying or whatever the case be. Same with meeting at their house. We found that if they have kids and dogs and things going on, sometimes they lose a little bit of control, or they have to leave or step out when you're in the middle of explaining something, or they're not fully there. So we've had the most success with bringing people into the office. So that's where we do all of our meetings now, is in the office, whether it's on the upstairs here, or we've used that downstairs conference room a lot as well. Easier for them to come and go down there. Let's see. Yes, so that is when we're setting the appointment to meet for a buyer consult. We set the expectation that it's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour. We talk through the buying process and then what they're looking for. So those are two big value adds that are very enticing for a buyer, especially a first-time home buyer. But it can be any buyer, someone that's been in the house for 20 years and they want to sell and buy, to be able to connect and talk through the process again and what they're looking for. So in Command, there are a variety of different presentations that you can use and critique and make your own. So feel free to check those out. We had made ours prior to Command being a thing. So ours are similar to Command, but they are our own templates essentially. So we have like a list of the 15 steps of buying a house, from the time of, signing buyer rep to meeting with a loan officer, to talking about what you're looking for, and throughout all the way down to the final walkthrough and closing time. So we talked through that whole process, all their expectations, because the main purpose of that buyer consult is to be able to set all the expectations moving forward. You get to set, that is your opportunity to say, this is essentially how it's going to go and what to expect, and you can answer most of their questions there, so that they now have everything that they need to know about the buying process, and you can send them home with that buyer consult that you've been able to print off of Command, and just changing a few things with your company logos and things like that. And so some can go shorter, some can go longer than an hour, but typically they're about 45 minutes to an hour. Talking through inspections, talking through everything, so that they have an idea of, the three things that they're going to have to pay for up front are going to be the earnest money, the inspections, and the appraisal. Those are the only three things that you have to pay for before closing time when you bring that one check through. So just really setting all those expectations, about inspection. It's not the opportunity to renegotiate as much as, do you still want to buy the house or not? We can ask for health and safety items, and that's what we're looking for. But really just kind of setting the expectations so that there's no surprises, so that when you get to that point in the process, you can look back, hey, remember the buyer consult, what we talked about, what that inspection period is really for, and when the earnest money is non-refundable, and just kind of reminding them. And a lot of times I was like, oh yeah, we did talk about that. So that's just a great way so that when you're out on showings, you aren't necessarily having to answer a ton of questions and you can focus on looking at the house and answering those questions there. Any questions on that part of the buyer consult so far?
I was gonna let you know I picked this up yesterday on my way home by my house.
Yeah.
It's a $1 million home if you want to go door knock.
Yeah, there you go. That's
I was
awesome.
too scared to do it.
Don't be too scared. It's the same as any other seller, the same as any
I've
other
never
seller.
sold a home before, but I thought I could sell your $6 million home.
Yeah, and you can. You've got the ability to. It's just like selling another $300,000 house. So they're all the same. They're
Sale
just
by
different
owner.
sizes.
So it's
What's
all
that?
yours. I said it's for sale by owner. It's all yours.
Yeah, no, you should go for it. I fully support that. So, and if you want me to go with you, I'm also happy to go with you on it. So
I will take you up on that.
yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So just shoot me a text and we'd be able to connect. Just so we know, I know my name says Alex on here. I forget how to change that. I am Ben, but I'm using one of Alex's computers. So
We would have never known.
perfect. And that's okay. And you can call me Alex too, and that's fine. I get called that about half the time. So let's see.
Do you,
Awesome.
do we have something at the office for, since I've never had to deal with it in a transaction yet, because since my buyers bought new construction, they just brought a check to the consultation, it was done. But do we have anything at the office where you can do that, like online pay through trust funds or whatever, where it's just an easy way to do the earnest money?
Yes, completely. And so it depends on the listing broker. So our office has the ability to do trust funds with anybody as long as that other party has trust funds. And so if that listing brokerage has trust funds, which the best way to ask is just ask that builder or that listing agent to be able to do that. Otherwise, what we do is we either have them the buyer bring a check here, or get it to you somehow, or have them just directly mail it to that listing brokerage office. So who was the listing broker? Did they not have trust funds or something of the sort, do you think?
So no, I just had to deal with it with my listing. So because
Sure.
I had to deal with it with my listing, I was like, oh, okay, this is a lot easier to deal with. I'm wondering if I can do the same thing when I have a buyer.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So when you have a buyer, when you go to the listing, you know how there's those different icons under that first photo when you're looking at the MLS. Do you kind of know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. So when you go to an MLS, let's see if I can share my screen.
Okay.
Share screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. So let me quick log in here. I will show you. Oh, these are great questions. Let's just go active. Okay, so here's one of our listings here. So if you go to, so here's that first picture I was talking about. So you'll see the trust funds logo is this blue and green kind of swish. You see that?
Yes.
Awesome. So you'll click on it. It'll bring you to trust funds. And then you get to pick, depending on how the purchase agreement is written, is the earnest money going to be held by the listing broker or the buyer's broker? And so typically it's the listing broker. That's the most common. You hit continue, and then you get to fill out your buyer's name, their email, the earnest money amount, a secret word. Typically we pick a word that is like relatable or funny to them, that maybe, you call the house, it's the brick house, or something. So you use brick or whatever that is that they might kind of relate to. So make sure you tell them what that secret word is. You check this box, and then just saying that you have a purchase agreement. And then convenience fee. There's a $5 fee that is either the buyer can pay or the buyer's agent can pay, meaning you. We always have the buyer pay because that's just part of the buying process. It's one of their expenses. We don't see it being one of your expenses as much as the buyers, just because it's part of their process and buying experience. So that's, and then you hit notify buyer, it emails it to them and they get a link and they can deposit it through that link. Pretty easy. Any
Yes.
questions about that?
No, I'm glad to know how to do it now.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Have you guys learned some of the different terms in terms of days on market and things like that?
I mean, I know days on market, but what is PDOM and CD?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, great question. Okay. Just because I want to make sure that we're talking about things that, and I'm not wasting your time if we don't know. So let's see. CDOM. So that's continuous days on market. Meaning the total days on market. Let's see if I can find one. And so pending days on market would be like if it's been pending or something. This is currently actively for sale. Let's try and find one that is just on the market that might have something different. For example, the reason that it might be that something might be like a new listing, but it might have been on the market for a while previously. I know that might not make sense yet, but let's see if we can. Okay, so this one, nope. Okay, so here we go. So this means within the last 32 days, some action has taken place on the listing, whether it was a price reduction or it went or it's gone under contract. Something has happened to it. So you can click on the history and see, yep, 32 days ago is when it went under inspection here. But it's been on the market. You know, they started at 6.5 million in 2019. And so that's this total of 427. So that's days that it's been on the market. If its status is in, right now it says status active. For houses that are TNAS, which means temporarily not available for showing, numbers are not counted. So this counter stops when it's in TNAS, just so that we're aware of that. But when you're in active or pending, until it's sold, that number continues to count. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions about any information or icons or things with the MLS?
No.
Bill, no, I know it's, let's see. Awesome. Let's see. Okay, so back to the buyer consult. I'll get back to stop sharing. Okay. So as for the buyer consult, so we've gone through the process so far with that buyer. And then what we do is so there's kind of 3 steps. We go through the process, we go through what they're looking for, and then we sign the buyer representation. And so step number 2 is we ask them about 40 questions, learning about what their house looks like. You know, how many beds, how many baths, what they think their price point is, assuming that they haven't talked with the loan officer. You know, how many bedrooms do you need per level? Do you prefer a certain style house, 1-story split entry? Are there any ones that you don't want in terms of, do you not want a split entry? Do you want to avoid split entries? Do you not want stucco houses? You know, just asking them about the siding. You know, do they have to have, do they want to be on a quiet street? Just asking them, you know, we've got about 40 questions that we go through and ask them about, you know, are you okay living up against a railroad? Do you have to be in a certain school district? So learning as much, this is our opportunity to help them as much as possible by learning what they're looking for and helping them even figure out what is the most important to them, so that you can go out there and on average, we show our clients, 2 to 3 houses before they're under contract on a property. And a big, big, big part of that, of course, we don't make that a requirement by any means, but we do set that expectation that it could be the first house, it could be the third house that we're looking at that is the best fit for you. And so much is available online that we share that they are able, so we set the expectation that they can be ready to buy that first house that they see, so that we aren't setting you up to have to go look at 100 houses. We want to make it as efficient for them and stress-free, where we are showing them houses that they're most serious about. For example, if they say, hey, Ben and Alex, I don't want a split entry, and they send us a house that they want to see, we remind them, hey, it's a split entry, do you still want to see it? Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that, thank you so much, let's not go look at it. Or it's on a busy road, it's Highway 7, are you sure you still want to see it? And a lot of times they'll say, no, thank you for pointing that out, versus everyone driving out there and being like, oh, this clearly isn't going to work. So we do as much research on that front end, learning what they're looking for so that we can help save both you and them time. Any questions on the consultation and the purpose of that in terms of learning what they're looking for? Awesome. Let's see, and then the third point in the buyer consultation is going to be the buyer rep docs. So we go line by line essentially through that buyer representation. We have it all printed off and already highlighted where they're going to be signing. And so as we start with agency, and then we do the waiver, and then we do the buyer rep. Those are essentially the 3 documents that you need to be able to have them under representation. We do require that everyone that we work with and that we go on a search for, that they have those documents signed before we even go out and look at the first house. So that they know, hey, we're working with Ben and Alex, and we know, hey, we're going to work hard for you to help you find that house that you just described in those 40 questions. Let's see, we have them sign the document as we're going through it. We've tried different techniques of, hey, do we run through it all first and then have them sign? And a lot of times we've had better luck with having them start off signing. Agency is a very easy document for them to get comfortable with signing. The waiver is, it's a little bit more information, but still a document that they're comfortable signing. So at this point, they've got their hand moving and they're used to signing. And so you just keep talking through the buyer rep, have them initial as you're going through it and make sure that they know what they're signing. But that's how we'd have the most success with getting it signed. And then once they're signed, then we go and set them up on the portal, also known as the matrix online. We always set the expectation that we'll do that within 24 hours, along with emailing them over the buyer rep docs. You do want to email those docs over to them for it to be valid. You want them to have a copy of it, so that you're both protecting yourself and them. So get that emailed over to them within 24 hours. That's just what we've said. You don't have to, but we like to make sure that they know this is the expectation and make sure that you're either meeting or exceeding it. And then, so are you guys familiar with the portal and how to set up a search there?
Yes. I like to do that because then I can tell if they're not texting me back, but they're in the portal.
Right.
It's a way to keep track of them.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah,
So,
I've used the portal too. I've even used the portal for people who said they were moving from another state and they wanted someone to help them out with the search, and it didn't end up turning into anything. That's where I guess you need to protect yourself with the buyer rep agreement.
yeah.
You can always stop it though too, right?
Yep, you can disable it. So when you go in, might as well show you here. This. So yes, so when you go into my matrix auto emails, you can click on your check mark on the left, and then at the bottom you go disable. And so that'll disable them. We always disable our buyers. We disable our buyers as soon as they are pending on a property, meaning through the inspection. versus, letting them have it forever, or even, once they're under contract on a property and there's still contingencies for them to back out, we let them have the portal access until then. But as soon as that inspection and contingency is removed, we disable it, just so that they don't necessarily fall in love or have access to fall in love with another property there. Let's see what else about the portal. We do
For
set
the
up.
portal, you don't like let any of the people that aren't your clients have access to that. Like I've done it for people that I was hoping maybe something would come out of it, and then they don't
Right.
even look at it.
Sure.
So
Right.
you strictly only do it for clients.
Right. And so that's the expectation that we set at our buyer council is, hey, once these documents are signed, we will get you set up on the portal. And so that gives them more motivation to want to sign those docs, because they're like, oh my gosh, we want access to the MLS, where it's actually more accurate information than Zillow and Trulia and Redfin. So we're like, this is the best tool out there for you. However, we only take the time to set it up for our buyers when they have decided that we're going to partner together. It's definitely a partnership that we're creating here with those clients.
See, I've tried to pull the whole, like, I only normally do this for my clients, but I really want to help you with your search, so I'll set this up for you.
Yeah.
But nothing's come out of it so far.
Sure. And I'd say, it's so much of creating that expectation of I'm going to work for you, you're going to commit to me, is such a great relationship and something that will get you business. Yes, there is a chance that by doing that, and there's a lot of realtors that do that as well. So it's not to say that just because we do it this way is the way that you should or have to do it. That's just, we found that, we could be setting up searches for people all the time and nothing comes of it, right? Or that they're using our portal and then they use a different realtor, right? So yes, when we got in business, we were doing that too, until we figured out what makes, and we learned, oh my gosh, we're spending energy on people that we're never going to be able to convert. And people want to work with you. And they will want to work with you when you commit. There's something about trusting each other and people wanting to support you as well. So.
When would you disable a buyer search if the agreement was already done, but if it's new construction and you're waiting for the house to be built?
It's up to you as to when there's like no rules about it. That's just what we do. Have they, like, they're purchasing that house, right? Like they're
very excited. Their earnest money's down, the contract has been written up, all of that. And so I feel bad when I see in my email that they keep getting these continuous searches being sent to them.
Right. And so seeing as though, kind of once they're in that point of, when new, like probably the point you're in now for new construction, I would disable it.
Okay.
As soon as they've committed and they're through that period of backing out, whether it's new construction or pre-owned, when you hit that period, disable them right away so that they aren't being bugged and that they aren't falling in love with something else either.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We send out our portal. So there's different options as to how you can send out the emails. You can have it send out as soon as possible, where it sends it out as soon as a new listing hits. You can send it out where you send it out once a day, Monday, Tuesday, Monday through Sunday. You can send it out every day. How we do it so that we aren't, bugging them too much, is we send it out every Monday and Friday. So that's another expectation that we set at the buyer consult is, hey, you're going to receive an email from us every Monday and Friday, but know that any of the links you could save the very first email that you receive. They are always live. So they don't have to click on the most recent link to be able to have the most updated information. It can be any of the emails. So we just set the expectation you'll get an email every Monday and Friday. So that, because sometimes if we have it every single day, we've seen people unsubscribe. Even if they want the information, they're just annoyed of getting an email every single day. So that's what we found to kind of be a sweet spot, is Monday, Friday. Let's see, for what else? There was one other thing I wanted to share about the portal. Let's see, what was it? Oh, we set up our own portal searches for many of our clients that get sent to us, to Alex and I. For example, if we know that we yes, our buyers said they want these parameters, but like their perfect world parameters are like a little bit more fine-tuned, right? So we end up setting up a portal search that is as soon as possible, emails Alex and I so that we get a heads up that property is available, so that we can then tell our buyers, hey, check out this property. Like, it will show up in their portal as well, but if they're not checking it every single minute, at least Alex and I are getting that email saying, hey, this property just hit the market, so we can share it to them. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, we kind of set up two portals, one for them and one for us, so that we're getting notified and able to offer that value and make sure that we try and be the ones sharing the houses with them as much as possible, versus them saying, hey, I want to check out these houses, which happens most of the time. But as much as we can be ahead of that by saying, hey, check out this house that just hit, that shows that we are valuable, and that we essentially found the house. And really, we just got an auto email that just sent it over to us right away, so that we're the first to know. Let's see. So then the buyer consult, once that is complete, the next step is always getting pre-approved with financing, right? And so we found the most success that we can line up. We ask the buyer, hey, would you like to meet with a loan officer right away after our consult, so that you can meet with us for an hour and then meet with the loan officer for an hour following, typically in the same room. But we as realtors step out and the finance person comes in. And more often than not, the buyer says, yes, of course, I haven't met with anyone yet. I'd love to get pre-approved. And so we have a loan officer that's in the wings that is able to step in and have that consult. And a lot of times by the end of that meeting, they're pre-approved. And now they have no questions about the home search or what the next steps are. And they're actually in a position where they can go out and buy. We have our loan officer, if we get approval from the buyers beforehand, we have them send an email over to those buyers and say, hey, complete this form before our meeting. And so that helps them by the end of those 2 hours that day. They pretty much have everything they need to know for the buying process, and potentially a pre-approval by the end of those 2 hours to be able to go out house hunting tomorrow and buy a house. So that's how we've been able to offer the most amount of value and get things moving as quick as possible. There's been times when we meet someone for the first time and they're closing on a house within 30 days. So just figuring out the best way to streamline and condense everything to get all the value to them as quickly as possible will help you be able to sell houses faster and help them at a much higher level.
Can I ask a question about like the loan side of things? So for your person that you work with, for your loan officer, do you have like one person that you work with, or do you work with multiple?
So we work with multiple. I'd say naturally we end up, help partnering with a loan officer that does, in our eyes, the best service, the best rates, the best communication, and closes on time, right? And so we actually use Tanya for most of our Tanya sample in the office with New American Funding. So we were at Remax previously for about 2 years. We've now been at Keller Williams for 5 or 6 years. And then we didn't use Tanya right away, and we tried out Tanya a little bit and found out, some of the awesome service and high level of communication that she's been having. And I bet you she does 80+% of our buyers' loans, just because we know the product we're going to get, it's on time, it's competitive, and she's got great energy, which a lot of buyers absolutely love. They want this to be a fun and exciting time, and it is. And she helps portray that and add to that and give that energy of excitement and fun throughout the process.
So do you expect when you're working with someone like Tanya or anyone, like I have a client that is very interested in the home that I showed them, but they still need to get pre-approved. And the loan officer that Ryan works with that also did our house that we bought, I don't have to use him by any means, like I can do with whoever I want. But do you expect them to have like that pre-approval done, like once you text them within that same day? Or like how quick of a turnaround usually should that be done? I'm just trying to learn more about that so I can decide if there's someone else that I want to work with.
Totally, yes. And so it's ultimately at the mercy of the buyer and how quickly they can get information to that loan officer. So
my
because they
person
need
sent their stuff over already
yeah
yesterday, and I'm still like kind of waiting on
Right. I would say, I mean, our expectation, which of course every loan officer is different, right? But our expectation is if they have everything to them, we're looking at 24 hours plus or minus as to, assuming that they did truly get them everything that was requested, that we'd get a pre-approval back, or at least a verbal saying, yep, they're good to go. You can go out house hunting. I'll get you a letter when you need it, right? So yes, I'd like to say 24 hours. Of course, it depends on what's going on in that loan officer's life. And I'd say having a conversation with that loan officer as to, hey, if I get all the docs to you today, how soon can I get that pre-approval? And just asking them, because from time to time, it might be, I can do it same day. And there might be times where, oh my gosh, kids in the hospital might not be able to get it to you for 48 hours. So
Is it okay
yeah.
to then say, like, I was hoping to get it done like a little bit sooner? Like, if you're busy, like, that's completely fine. I might just, like, I don't know. I don't ever want to be too pushy or too rude, but I want to know, like, to an extent, like, how, like, for you, like, how much time you expect that they should have that done by.
Right. I mean, I'd say so typically, we like to see it within 24 hours, assuming all the documents are over. And Tanya, she's really good about that. Of course, if the buyer doesn't supply everything that was requested, it's hard to get a pre-approval. And so I'd say just having as much communication with that loan officer before maybe sending them over to them, calling them on the front end saying, hey, I've got someone who wants to buy a house. I can get stuff to you, or they can get their stuff to you today. How soon can you get me a pre-approval? And maybe doing that on the front end before even sending them their stuff. But otherwise, if you haven't heard from that loan officer today yet, I'd say, give them a buzz today. Hey, when can we expect that so that I can set the right expectation for this buyer? If they've already sent their info over, it might be tough to switch right away and try and get something any quicker than that person can, seeing as though they have the stuff. But it's also important that we're sharing with our buyers that they're not obligated to use someone that we might introduce them to, and that they can use whoever they want. But also educating of them of the pros and the cons of different options, right? Like if you're working with a big bank and that loan officer only works from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and you find a house on Saturday and you can't get a pre-approval letter, you want to make sure that, your buyer, just because they bank at Wells Fargo doesn't necessarily mean that they should get their loan through Wells Fargo. But that, of course, is up to them. We don't want to ever steer someone or direct them as much as offer resources that they can choose to use. Hopefully that's helpful. I kind of went in a circle there, but.
No, it is helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Any other questions?
I just had trouble trying to figure all of that out starting, and that obviously Tanya is amazing, and they do all that stuff like the list reports for us for open houses and things like that. But in my neighborhood, I've also paired up with someone because we want people to kind of think of the two of us in our neighborhood as, if I'm going to sell or I'm going to buy, these are the two people I'm going to use. And then I would feel like I'm like, if we do any advertising or anything, if I do anything on social media, I think, oh gosh, if Tanya sees this, she's going to be upset. And I have to realize that, like, she's working with other agents too.
Exactly.
And, you know what I mean? So you got to do what works for your business, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's so good that you're aware of that and cautious of that, but
Right.
You're exactly right. It's kind of finding a balance of, both spreading it around and making sure that you're still connecting people with your trusted people. I wouldn't necessarily say hand someone off to someone that you might not think that does not provide the best service, because that's not in our client's best interest. But It is good to exactly share it around, because ultimately, the more people that we're all connected with, the more potential for business. When I meet with loan officers, we never say, if I give you a deal, I want a deal. We always say, hey, we want you as the loan officer to, if you have a buyer that does not have an agent, we want you to pick whoever that realtor is that you think will be in that client's best interest, whether it's us or whether it's someone else. We want you to pick who is best for that client. And a lot of times by having that conversation with them versus being like, hey, you know, well, what, like when they ask the question, well, what do you want from me as a loan officer? You know, and that's typically our response, is just sharing that we don't expect any transactions, but we want you to pick who you think is best for that buyer. And a lot of times that conversation will allow you to be able to create a fantastic partnership with them, where they want to give you business. And that you're showing that you are the best person for them. But yes, no, feel free to still post and advertise with other loan officers, and just spreading the love around. So. Awesome. And then the other expectation that we set at the buyer consult is that all buyers are to be pre-approved before we go and look at a house. So, you know, it's sign the buyer rep before we give you on the portal, and you got to show me a pre-approval letter before we go out and search. We don't show any houses before a person's pre-approved. A person will talk all day long how, oh yeah, I can get pre-approved so quickly, and it comes down to it, they might have a credit thing or something going on. So always get them pre-approved just so you're not wasting their time, your time, the seller's time, everyone else. So.
Yeah, I got burned taking a family that I knew through the hockey community to a house, and they got pre-approval and everything. And they were trying to negotiate with me the commission. And I was explaining to them that that comes from the listing agent. But they still wanted to know, because it was a house they couldn't afford, if that could be negotiated. And I trusted them because I knew them, and I did not have a buyer's rep agreement in place. And then I found out that the next day they consulted the listing agent on their own.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so I've kind of learned the hard way, you know, even if it's people you know and you think they would never, ever do that to you, have that representation. And I think they weren't trying to like be mean to me. I think they honestly were trying to figure out every way possible to get enough money to put down on this house.
Sure.
And so they wanted to cut commission corners to do it.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yes. And that's exactly what that buyer rep is there to help protect you. Exactly. I know it's a tough spot. We've all been there at some point. But no, as much as we can avoid that moving forward is the best. So, yes. And that's, you know, same with, yeah, that's the exact point of family and friends is that, you know, they act different when you're doing a transaction because it's a stressful and a big time for them for changing. So sometimes you see different sides of them, and that they don't necessarily mean to be like that necessarily, as much as the stresses can change them a little bit in some of those transactions. So, or they choose to use other realtors to keep business separate or whatever reason they might have. So. And the big thing is just try not to take it offensively, and just keep moving and just say next and keep moving on, because it will happen and that's okay. So, let's see. Let's see. Is there any questions about the buyer consult or how to find buyers? Anything buyer related that you guys have questions about or want to pick my brain on? Otherwise, that's kind of mostly all the things that we wanted to touch on today. I don't mean to make it too short for you, but.
No questions. This has been good.
Awesome. Well, if you guys ever have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm Ben Dzurik again. So even though it says Alex, I am Ben, but you can also reach out to Alex and that is just as good. We're always happy to help here. So we've got an office here and Jacob is there as well and can help too. So
Ben, can I get your number for this?
Yes. It is 612.
Oh, 1 second.
Make it easy.
612.
Yep. 751 8732.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to go door knock or do anything of the sort with you on that.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Partner together on a listing. There we go.
I'd have the most money I've ever had in my life.
Exactly. There we go. Let's do it. So awesome. Well, you guys, it was so nice connecting this morning and talking through some things. Great questions, good conversation. So thanks for taking the time. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out and always here to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of
Thanks,
course.
I appreciate it.
Of course. Have a great
Take
day.
care.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.